Metal Jesus, I'm back again. Now this week I thought it might be kind of fun to go back in time, back to when I used to work at Sierra Online back in the mid-90s, and cover a game that not a lot of people know about, and that is a game called Hunter Hunted. Now what's kind of interesting about this game is you have to kind of understand a little bit about Sierra history. In the 80s and the early 90s, Sierra was kicking ass on the PC, making games that were essentially story-driven adventure games. Games like Gabriel Knight, there was King's Quest, Police Quest, just a ton of these games, Space Quest, all these games like that. But they pretty much ignored hardcore action and platforming games. And they also really ignored the console market. So there was a group of developers down in Eugene, Oregon. They worked for a company called Dynamics, which was part of the Sierra family. And they wanted to take a chance, and they wanted to really try to create a world-class 2D platformer. And Hunter Hunted is that game. And I thought it might be kind of fun to talk about this game because it does a lot of things right, but it does some things not so great. And it's just a really unique title. So let's take a look.
Phew! Sierra!
Now it is time to put your training to the test, human.
Hunter Hunted is a 2D action platformer by Sierra Entertainment, and this was released for Windows PC only. And they released this to the public on October 31st, 1996. Now, I mentioned in the intro that this game was created by some developers from Dynamics, and specifically it was produced by Jeff Tunnell, who is executive director for Dynamics. And if you were a gamer in the mid-90s, you've probably played some of his games, including Rise of the Dragon, The Incredible Machine, an excellent game, also Tribes, very popular, and a classic RPG on the PC called Betrayal at Krondor, excellent game. And actually more recently, he's created Marble Blast Ultra. Now, working with Jeff is a guy named Chris Cole. And now he got to start working on the 3D Ultra Pinball series way back in the mid-90s, as well as he contributed to the Incredible Toon Machine. But more recently, he created the really excellent Siphon Filter games for the PSP. Now, a lot was riding on this game. Sierra was taking these very seriously. As a matter of fact, Ken Williams, the CEO and founder of Sierra, very famously actually said in a magazine that he will fire those guys if these games aren't any good. Okay, so I should probably get into the backstory for the game. And admittedly, it's kind of cliched, it's not that great, but it has a really interesting twist. Now, the game takes place in the future, in the year 2015, and there's this really powerful alien race called the Masters. And they have taken over Earth, as well as a bunch of other planets. And typically what they do is they destroy the planet, take its resources, and kill off most of the population. And then what they do is they take the best and the brightest, the strongest and of those races, and they basically put them into this kind of arena called Hunter Hunted. Now, that story's not that great, but actually what's really interesting is that this game functions as a prequel to the Earthsiege and Starsiege universe. So if you are a big fan of those mech games or of Tribes, well, this game is actually part of that. This is actually the beginning of all of those stories. In the game, you'll go back and forth playing either as a human or as the Minotaur race. And what's really interesting is that each one has its plus and minuses. So Jake the human has the ability to use advanced weaponry like guns and rocket launchers, where Gareth Den, I love that name, Gareth Den. And that's exactly how they say it in the game too. Gareth Den wins. Okay, sorry, I'm getting lost here. Anyways, Gareth Den has the ability to jump farther. He has a whip. And he's just he's a guy who's able to climb a little bit better, things like that. So in the game, you have these two characters, and you go back and forth playing either as the Minotaur or as the human, and it's pretty interesting. They're fairly similar, but they have their differences. Now, one of the things I want to point out, though, is the graphics. Now, for the time, this was a pretty amazing looking game, and that's because Sierra did two things. They basically motion captured all the characters, so all the climbing, the jumping. It kind of reminds me of maybe a little bit of the classic game, what was that game called? Flashback. And then they also rendered everything in CGI. So where it has that kind of, dare I say, Donkey Kong Country look to it. So they put a lot of time and effort into the visuals. Now, they're kind of fuzzy and blocky by today's standards, but, in 1996, this is pretty advanced, at least for the PC. Another trick that they do in this game with the visuals, you may have noticed it here, is that when you go up to a door or like a cave or something like that, if you push the joystick up, the game actually takes you into the next level. And so everything kind of zooms in. It's almost like the Z plane. And it's a pretty cool effect. And not a lot of games do it, and it certainly works well in Hunter Hunted here. Now, as a platforming game, it mostly succeeds, but the controls are a little fidgety. It's really easy to screw up and kind of do the wrong thing at the wrong time. And so it's not quite as good as some other classics like Super Metroid or Shadow Complex, but this game definitely has its following. And there's enough variety here with all of its missions to keep most platformer fans happy. I mean, there's 65 regular levels, plus there's 20 head-to-head missions and 15 cooperative missions. So there's a lot to enjoy in this game.
Objective satisfied. Gareth Den wins.
All right, so that's Hunter Hunted, but you know what? I want to share something with you before I go. While I was researching this review, I went through a bunch of the old Sierra stuff I have, and I pulled out a copy of Interaction Magazine. Now, Interaction Magazine is really interesting because Sierra used to publish it quarterly, and it just basically covered all of their games. And I was digging through these looking for, some little tidbits on Hunter Hunted, and I found something really interesting, actually. I found an article that has my lead singer of the band, Drunken Master Paul, in it, and he's actually right there. And he did, I don't know if he wrote this article. I'm gonna have to ask him because it's pretty funny. But he's definitely playing and helping advertise Hunter Hunted. And so I thought this was kind of an interesting little piece of Sierra history. And he has no idea that I have this or found it. So I'm going to totally tease him next time we have band practice. So, all right. Well, I want to thank you for watching my channel and thank you for subscribing. Take care.